Howdy, everybody, and a very pleasant game day to you wherever you may be. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving surrounded by friends and family. And as the holiday season officially begins, before you get too merry or too holly and jolly, we've got some Black Friday football for you between two bitter rivals as the Fighting Texas Aggies and Texas Longhorns are set to meet for the 120th time in just about 90 minutes in Austin, Texas. Howdy, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the TexAgs Tailgate Show. My name is Richard Zane, and the 2025 edition of the Lone Star Showdown is set to kick off at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC. The Aggies are undefeated. They're ranked third nationally. They would clinch a spot in the SEC championship game with a victory today in Austin, but standing in their way is the three-loss Longhorns who are still clinging to an outside shot at making the 12-team college football playoff field if they could win today. Thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the TexAgs Tailgate Show presented by our friends at Duck Camp. Just about 90 minutes until kickoff between Texas A&M and Texas at Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium in Austin. Here's what you can expect from this program. In just a few seconds, we will check in live with David Nuno, the TexAgs Director of Content and the host of TexAgs Live. He is on site in Austin, Texas, ahead of this Lone Star Showdown as the energy is starting to build inside the stadium. Throughout the show, we'll also give you a rundown of some players to watch. We'll give you an update of the SEC student-athlete availability report as it's about to drop. We'll give you some prize picks, player squares you might want to play in this one. We'll check in with games around the country, including a Texas A&M basketball game as the Aggies are up big on Florida State and Tampa Bay. We'll have the latest for you in just a little bit, and we'll also make some predictions for the game between Texas A&M and Texas. Just moments away now from chatting with David Nuno, but first we got to pay some bills and give a ton of appreciation to our friends at Duck Camp for jumping on as the presenting sponsor of the TexAgs Tailgate Show. And whether you are hunting birds at sunrise or flipping burgers before kickoff, Duck Camp's got you covered this fall. Check it out at duckcamp.com, built for the outdoors and designed for everything else. And with that, let's go ahead and say howdy to David Nuno. I see him. He is in Austin, Texas, as the TexAgs travel crew made the trip over about 90 miles a little bit early today. David, howdy. How was the drive? And did you and Olin stop for breakfast in Bastrop?
Well, we actually took two different vehicles to get here. I'm going to stick around for a couple hours longer than I want to tomorrow. I'm going to be very honest with you, Richard. My guard is up. I'm not very comfortable in this environment. There's way too much orange for my liking, too much alcohol for my liking, and I'm ready for a royal beatdown of the University of Texas. But happy to be here to cover history as A&M, hoping to go to the SEC championship game against their bitter rival. And I'm excited to be here because I think A&M's got the better team. And, usually I'm poking holes in our resume. I'm not. We have the better team. I feel very, very confident today in this game.
You mentioned some history. It's Texas A&M's first time to travel to Austin since 2010. The Aggies won that game. You mentioned the atmosphere, too much alcohol for your liking. What can you tell us about the energy inside and outside as you've spent pretty much most of the day in Austin, Texas, getting ready for the 120th meeting between the Ags and Horns?
I don't think I'm allowed on the field. I did make an appearance on the field, and I realized it midway. I was like, I better get off because, Revley, Nuno, Olin, we can't get onto the field until much later. But this is what I'll tell you. I tweeted it. I can't take full credit for the line. But let's just say there's a lot of overrated chants as the Aggies were making their way to the locker rooms and Longhorn fans. And let's not forget this was the preseason #1 team chanting overrated at the end of the season when one team is undefeated and one team might end up 8-4. But the energy is there's a lot of hate from the Longhorn fans, which is great. It's an awesome college football environment. And people were here early. To me, it's my first time here. I've never been to DKR, never covered a Longhorn game in my career. I did cover the Longhorns at the Cotton Bowl versus OU, Texas OU, but I've never covered a game here at DKR. It's got more of a pro vibe to me. The outdoors, it's a little different. It doesn't feel like an SEC environment. That's not a knock. It just feels different. But the energy is people are ready for this game, and they from a Texas perspective, you can tell that they really want to beat A&M so they can continue to say the little lines that they say. From an A&M perspective, it's on to the next one. Take care of business here so you can go on to bigger, better things.
Well, the Aggies always want to beat Texas, right? We say we've got a burning desire to beat the hell out of TU. Same thing. I mean, it's kind of a similar situation last year, right? A&M entered that game 8-3. Texas enters this one 8-3. Last year it was at Kyle Field. This time it was at DKR. The Aggies were trying to play spoiler. Now it's the Longhorns. How do your feelings compare for this one compared to last year's game in Austin or in College Station? Excuse me.
I really thought A&M. I think I called it on the show, and I was wrong. But I thought that A&M was going to win that game last year. So, but I wasn't confident, right? Like Texas, the reason I had confidence, Richard, was I didn't think Texas had beaten anybody, right? And I know that some people are trying to use that against A&M this year. I recognize that, but that's the irony of this all, right? A&M did beat a Notre Dame team that looks like they're going to the playoffs, but whatever. They ended a coach's season. They've gotten rid of everybody in front of them and ended the trajectory of their season. But that's the difference, is that last year I felt that A&M could win and maybe should win. This year, I'm very confident in A&M is the better team on the line of scrimmage. They've got the better quarterback. They've got the better playmakers. So to me, it's don't make mistakes, right? If A&M can play their brand of football without making mistakes, because sometimes their brand of football does include a turnover, some bad penalties. You know, Cranover can't go off sides. Marcel can't turn the ball over. There can't be pitches that go for a fumble, right? They've got to play a clean football game. And I think, let's not forget, SEC games go 4 quarters, right? Like, that's just the bottom line. You look at the A&M Florida game. You look at what happened with Missouri and A&M. You look at what happened with South Carolina. You look at what happened with Texas and Georgia a couple of weeks back, where it was a 14-10 game. If you watched the game, you knew that Georgia was dominating that one. But then it was 35, right? 35-10, I think it was. So that being said, it's a 4-quarter game. Don't get, overworked up if Texas scores on their first drive or they have a lead at the end of one. It is a 4-quarter game, and I think A&M is the more battle-tested, the more battle-ready team for this matchup.
Want to ask you a little bit more about the quarterbacks and the offensive line, the physicality, the stuff that you touched on, but we've got to get to some breaking news-ish, kind of adjacent. The availability report just came out a couple minutes ago. Obviously, we learned A&M, or for the Aggies yesterday, Le'Veon Moss and Scooby Williams were both officially ruled out. Today, no surprises, but on the Texas side, linebacker Anthony Hill Jr. listed as a game-time decision for the Longhorns. So what we learned yesterday, no Le'Veon Moss. He won't play. He hasn't played since the Florida game. Without number 8 again this week, what can we expect from the A&M running game, especially against one of these better defensive lines that's led by edge rusher Colin Simmons?
Well, first off, I think Anthony Hill will play. Game-time decision, to me, feels like he's going to play. So that's just my guess, and we'll see how effective he is. But I expect him to play. As for Le'Veon, my thinking is that we saw what they did last year with Reuben Owens, right? And he only got a few carries in that game against Texas. So, if Le'Veon would have played, we would have gladly seen it and we've been all about it. But you can't expect that much when you've been gone for however long it's been, 2 months. So that being said, I believe Reuben Owens, what we could see is that drip we've gotten used to seeing. The Missouri game, let's not forget, Missouri was winning the battle of running, the rushing yards. And in the 4th quarter, that's when Reuben got going. So it goes back to my original point about a 4-quarter game. I think Reuben will see the slow drip and then the tidal wave erupt there early in the 4th quarter.
Earlier today, I was watching the Egg Bowl like a lot of college football fans were, and ABC decided to run their Heisman favorites graphics. 4 guys on the list, okay? Mendoza, Sayed, Jeremiah Love, and the 4th, David, was Diego Pavia. So, in your estimation, what does Marcel Reed have to do today to get the lazy ones among us to finally stop overlooking him? As we know here in College Station, he is undoubtedly one of the Heisman favorites entering Week 14.
That's actually surprising. I didn't know that was the case. That kind of bugs me. I think Pavia should be mentioned, no doubt. I mean, Vanderbilt, what he's done for that program the last 2 years, along with Barkley. Look, if you're going to give Barkley and Diego Pavia credit, you give Mike Elko and Marcel Reed credit, right? A&M hasn't been in this position in forever. And the fact that this team can beat you in multiple ways, I think sometimes hurts Marcel a little bit. But without an excellent Marcel Reed, they're not in a position to beat you multiple ways. If they know that Marcel can't throw, they play you differently. But because he can make the throw, because he can do the zone read, because he can make the runs, right? Like, that's what makes him so dangerous. He can beat you multiple ways, and then he's got the playmakers. By the way, everybody who wins a Heisman, if you're a quarterback, you've got playmakers around you too. Let's not pretend like this is not a playmaker game, right? It's how you play together. And I think that's the beauty of what Marcel's been able to do this year. But I also think sorry, guys. I just feel too many people around me. I'm the idiot who's doing his hit in the concourse because I couldn't find a play. I couldn't go on the field. So anyway, I think Marcel should get the love that he deserves.
Good news is nobody's truly messed with you on the concourse thus far. From one quarterback to the other one, right? And you and I, we were both in Atlanta for SEC Media Days back in July. I was actually one of the morons in that ginormous scrum surrounding Texas quarterback Arch Manning. I felt then that he was an extremely easy guy to root for if he were playing for literally any other team. He's obviously playing a little bit better now than he was earlier in the season, especially after that stat padding game he had against Arkansas. What have you seen from number 16, and what does Texas A&M need to do against him? What's the key to stopping him?
Well, first off, the guy is definitely playing with a lot more confidence than he was doing before. And I will give Sarkisian credit that he found a way to get his playmakers the ball with a lot more screens, right? And getting the ball on the outskirts. To me, what A&M has to do is do what they've done all year long, which is just provide pressure. The fact that Texas is not a very good running the ball team, I think that's going to put them in some 3rd and 6, 3rd and longs. And that's where Cassius and company, I think Tyler Yedem and the whole crew, that's where I think they're able to maximize what they do so well. So to me, it's don't allow Arch to get comfortable and just be ready for those screens. They have not really had a propensity to throw the ball deep the second half of the season because they weren't connecting on them early on. So I think if you can limit those, I think A&M is going to be in some 3rd and long situations, and that's the Cassius and them convenience.
David, I'm watching clean old-fashioned hate on the computer as I talk to you, and they just flashed a Heisman Watch graphic, and Marcel was on this one. So no need to be too upset over there in Austin. It's kind of a cliche, right, David? But every single SEC game, it truly does come down to winning in the trenches and physicality. And it seems like the Aggies have the upper hand in that one when you compare the two offensive lines, right? The Aggies have the experience and the physicality with the Maroon Goons compared to what is a technically rebuilt Texas offensive line from a year ago. The defensive lines are almost a push. They wash each other out. So when it comes to winning in the trenches, what gives you confidence that the Aggies are going to be able to win those battles in this one today?
Well, A&M has the veteran offensive line that Texas had last year, right? So that's a point for A&M. As for the defensive lines, I just think A&M got a better running game than Texas does, and I think the stats bear that out. So that's the reason that, like, even if the defensive lines were a push, is Reuben Owens, E.J. Smith, Demarion Morrow, like Amari Daniels, those guys have had a significantly better showing than what Wisner and the rest of the University of Texas running game has done. That being said, don't let this be that first game where they get off, right? They haven't done it all season long. And I think, obviously, when you're at the last regular season game of the year, you are who you are. So the best version of A&M needs to show up. And I think the best version of what we've seen so far from Texas is not a very good running team. So that gives me a lot more confidence in A&M's ability to establish their run against a very good defense in Texas, and A&M's ability to stop an offensive running game that has struggled this season.
The longer we keep you, the more I feel like we're pushing our luck before an unruly fan comes and like photobombs you. So I want to go ahead and get you out of here. And with that, I want your X factor, your player to watch, and your final score prediction for the 120th playing of the Lone Star Showdown.
The X factor is Marcel Reed. All right. This is the game. This is the LSU game, part 2, where Marcel Reed parts the Red Sea a couple of times, throws some bombs, and has that amazing game. X factor. I always forget. It's the same question every week, Richard, but I always forget. What's the other question?
It was X factor, player to watch, and score prediction.
Player to watch. Okay, let's go with. Am I allowed to go with another X factor as the player to watch? Is that okay with you today?
Dude, you're my boss. You can make your own rules.
All right, you called me dude on air. I'm going to say my dude, Cassius Howell. Cassius Howell's the other guy to watch because I really do believe that Texas's offensive line has struggled against some pass rushers. They have not seen a guy like Cassius Howe. Cassius is going to get some sacks today. It'll be Sackus, not just Cassius. And then the final score, I think they're going to score 31. Call it 31-20. 31-20 is my score.
I like that. That'd be a lot more comfortable than, trying to hang around that 2.5-point line that Vegas has it at. David, appreciate you so much. Obviously, you got to keep Olin in check up in the press box. And in case you haven't seen it, Bucky McMillan was up 28 points at halftime.
I did see that. I need to catch up on that game. Thank you, Richard. It's going to be an awesome atmosphere tonight. Looking forward to planning our SEC championship, hopefully, if they can get a victory tonight.
Of course. You guys stay out of trouble and have a safe trip home. That's TexAgs Director of Content, the host of TexAgs Live, David Nuno, live on site at DKR-Texas Memorial Stadium in Austin. Can't believe I dude him on air, Nick. I did have a joke earlier in there. I didn't get it in about, Reveille wasn't allowed inside the stadium, but David was, and he's my dog, but I completely missed it. I missed my opportunity. That's on me.
That was very good people watching, by the way. And I just couldn't, I was looking behind him the whole time. Okay, I was thinking the same thing you were. Who's going to come up and mess with them?
At one point, I thought I saw a burnt orange, Billy Lucci, a Texas doppelganger of Luch, but he didn't turn around. We didn't actually get to see him. Nick, let's go ahead and run through the SEC Student Athlete Availability Report one more time for the Aggies. It's 4 players out. It's linebacker Scooby Williams, running back Le'Veon Moss, safety Bryce Anderson, and safety Rashad Tom Johnson Jr. We learned yesterday on the Thursday update of the SEC Availability Report that Williams and Moss would not play. Moss has not played since October 11th against Florida with an ankle injury. Back-to-back seasons, the Aggies won't have their bell cow, number 8, Le'Veon Moss, against the Texas Longhorns. And for Scooby, he suffered an injury against Notre Dame, but he has played in 3 games since then. Florida, Arkansas, and LSU hasn't played since October the 25th. For Texas, we know Ty Anthony Smith, the linebacker's out for just the first half. He's serving a suspension for a targeting penalty in the second half of that win against Arkansas. And then it's Anthony Hill, their star linebacker in the middle of that defense. He's a game-time decision. His stats for the year, 69 tackles, nice, 37 solo stops, 7 TFLs, 4 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, and 2 picks. That would be a huge loss if Anthony Hill is unable to play for the Texas Longhorns. And with that, it leads right into our players to watch for tonight's game. I'm going to go with the same one David Nuno went with on offense. Marcel Reed. Is tonight another Heisman moment? Obviously, he's got the one in South Bend, that 4th and goal from the 11-yard line, the touchdown pass to Nate Berkacher that beat the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We've seen him elevate his game in big-time environments so far this season. He did it at Notre Dame. He did it in LSU. A big-time performance and perhaps a gaudy stat line today could vault him up to the top spot in those Heisman favorite graphics we've been talking about on ESPN and ABC. He's seeking to become just the 3rd Aggie ever to win the Heisman Trophy. He would join John David Crow and Johnny Manziel as A&M players to win college football's highest honor. On the defensive side, I'll go with Cassius Howe, the defensive end. He's leading the Southeastern Conference with 11.5 sacks. He's got 12.5 TFLs on the year. Texas has allowed 21 sacks this season. Georgia had 3. Mississippi State had 5. Kentucky had 3, and Florida had 6. The Horns are 2-2 in those games, and the other 2 wins, and they needed to go to overtime to get them. So this highlights the importance of pressuring Arch Manning. Obviously, nobody does that better than number 9, Cassius Howe. Howe has at least 1 sack in 5 of his 7 SEC games this season. 8.5 of his 11.5 have come in Southeastern Conference play. On the other side, for the Texas Longhorns on offense, I'll highlight the wide receiver, Ryan Wingo. You heard David Nuno talk about how every team in this league has playmakers for the quarterback to distribute the ball to. Texas is no different. They like to get Wingo involved in short screen games. He's got the ability to get a lot of yak after he reels them in. He's got 46 catches, 736 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns. They'll also use him in some jet motion, some sweeps and stuff like that. Quick throws and quick reads can help Arch get into a rhythm. You have to keep him in check. He's averaging 16 yards per catch. And then on defense, I will go with Colin Simmons. It's kind of like a really, really cool battle of maybe the two best edge rushers in this league between Simmons and Howell today. Simmons has 10 sacks on the year, has the same number of TFLs as Cassius Howell with 12.5. Expect him to line up a little bit more over Demetrius Crownover rather than Trey Zune. Regardless, you have to know where he's at all times. The defensive line is going to be critical in slowing down A&M's rushing attack, especially if Anthony Hill can't go. And you also know that Anthony Hill is going to be less than 100% if he's considered a game-time decision for this one. With that, we'll go ahead and give you some player squares you might want to play on Prize Picks for this Lone Star Showdown. A reminder, Prize Picks, the best site to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use code TexAgs when you sign up to receive a guaranteed $50 when you play your first $5 in lineups. Nick, I know Luke gave us quite a few numbers to play. Anything that's striking your fancy that you might want to throw into a lineup on Prize Picks?
Well, I'm looking at the TD scores. I feel like KC is always a good bet. It seems like he's scoring almost every game. I'm surprised EJ Smith's not on there. If EJ Smith was on there, I would look for him as a TD scorer. You know, short yardage situation near the goal line. He's the heavy back, so he would get a chance there. Looking at Marcel Reed's numbers, over 1.5 passing TDs, I'd take that all day. And then let's see here, KC Concepcion, 4.5 receptions. Take the over on that one. You gotta look to your guys, right? When you're in crunch time, when you're looking to go 12-0, you got to trust your go-to. So I feel like he's going to get more than 4.5 receptions tonight.
Absolutely. You got to get the ball to KC, got to get the ball to Mario, but it's really nice for Texas A&M. They've got 3 guys that that Marcel Reed can distribute the ball to. I like that Ruben Owens line. I think he's going to get into the end zone not once, not twice, or not once, but twice, excuse me. A little bit more on that as we make our predictions a little bit later on. To make some plays, visit prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use that code TexAgs when you sign up. You'll receive $50 instantly once you play your first $5 in lineups. Throughout the week, and even though this one was a short week with a game on Friday, a holiday yesterday, we still had a number of guests on TexAgs Live. We've had a ton of guests on TexAgs throughout the entire season, Nick. It's really been one of our best football seasons from a star power perspective on our site. Earlier this week, we had Josh Pate, we had Marty McGee today, we had SEC Mike, Billy Lucci, all sorts of people on TexAgs Live. One of the matchups inside this game is going to be the quarterback battle, right? Which one outperforms the other? Marcel Reed's a Heisman candidate. Arch Manning's got the pedigree. He's got the last name and all that comes with it. Earlier this week, ESPN's Marty Smith joined TexAgs Live to talk about this QB battle and what he has seen from both Reed and Manning this season leading into the Lone Star Showdown.
I think this game's going to be awesome. And you got 2 quarterbacks who are really starting to make that next step. We talked about Marcel every week, deservedly so. He's had just a fantastic year. But this morning, I was comparing his numbers overall to Arch's. They are very similar in terms of the personal production that both of these young men have accomplished. But the number one thing that you see from both of those young men above everything else is that supreme confidence that comes with having offensive staffs that see your gifts and that then tailor the offense towards your gifts. And both of them are very gifted young men. And it's going to be a heater. I think the game comes down to, can Texas run the football against you guys?
The number comparison to me, Nick, has always been weird, right? You're trying to compare what a Heisman contending quarterback in Marcel Reed's doing, and it seems like the Longhorns are clinging to these numbers from Arch, trying to thrust a 3-loss QB into Heisman contention as well. Just, it's kind of laughable to everybody outside of Austin, but I get it. And I also think that stats and statistical comparisons are for people that don't truly watch the games, but that's just me. The future commissioner of college football, right? Who is he picking in this one? Of course, I'm talking about Josh Pate. once again. Texas A&M seems to be Pate State material, according to Josh. He came on TexAgs Live on Tuesday to explain why he's picking the Aggies to win in Austin tonight.
And I pretty solidly lean Texas A&M. Now, I say solidly. I pretty strongly lean over there. I would just solidly be A&M if you could play it in College Station. The one saving grace Texas has here is you do get it in Austin. But look, we have been talking about this all year. I keep going back to how many different ways A&M's had to win games and how that serves you come really like playoff time, but just come late in the season when you're out in the deep end, like your feet can't touch the bottom of the pool anymore, and only the teams that can swim survive from this point on. And sometimes these things get complicated. Sometimes you overthink the room on them. I don't want to be prisoner of overthinking room on this game. I just think there are too many things that A&M can do at even a B- or better level to where if I get just a collection of those things to click here, I think I should be all right. And the other part of that if I was going to counter my argument would be, well, okay, but the whole how many great teams has A&M played? How many great quarterbacks has A&M played? Look, if you want to go down that road, I'd ask you, are they playing one this weekend? Are they playing either of those this weekend? Now, you do have a quarterback there that at his top end can make some throws that most quarterbacks A&M space can't make. But anything you're saying about him, I can say about Marcel Reed. And I can say about the offense collectively. At A&M's offensive best, how many of those has Texas seen? So, I was impressed with Texas getting off the mat last week against Arkansas. That kind of gets overlooked once you've won it, but that was the kind of game that could implode them. So they did do that, so they put maximum meaning on the game. But I tried to find ways, not because I wanted to find them per se, but because it was my duty to try and find them. I didn't find enough to talk me off of this, so I'm going Texas A&M.
Josh says a B-, B+ kind of performance would get Texas A&M a win at DKR tonight. But, Nick, I want an A++. I want a 100% performance from the Aggies. We still haven't seen a complete performance from the Maroon and White this season. The problem is you've been studying for a test that you don't really know, what questions are going to be on it, right? Because Texas is, as Kirk Bowles put it earlier this week, the biggest mystery team in the country. What do we know about the Horns? Yes, we know they're talented. They've got Manning at quarterback. They've been to the college football playoff in back-to-back seasons, so they've got experience in big games. Their offense looks much better after a win against Arkansas last week. But Anthony Hill's still a huge question mark. Their running game's been a question mark all year long. Here is the aforementioned Kirk Bowles of the Austin American-Statesman about his position on Texas being the biggest question mark mystery team in the country on TexAgs Live earlier this week.
They are the biggest mystery team in the country, I think. They can't run the ball. All of a sudden, their defense has been horrible. They're giving up an average of 35 points the last 4 games. But, they've won 3 of them. They've been kind of beat up in the defense. The secondary's been shredded. Arch Manning is playing at a high level. He is not the problem as he was in September, along with the offensive line. So it's a mixed bag, guys. I mean, their defense will play great. I mean, but it just hasn't looked like the team that held Ohio State to 203 total yards. And I don't reckon that. But they rush the quarterback very well, as do the Aggies. I think they're 2 and 3 in the country in sacks. But they play this soft zone defense, and they don't play press man coverage. So, I mean,
guess that's the end of that. To hear all of those interviews in their entirety, go to texags.com/subscribe. Never a better time to be a TexAgs premium subscriber. Nick Savage can attest to that. And you want to get in on the ground level because if Texas A&M is going to go to the SEC championship game next week, or if they're going to go to the college football playoff, our content's only going to reach another level. I can assure you of that. So texags.com/premium, texags.com/subscribe to get in and get all of those interviews and so much more in their entirety. Nick, some games around the country. We've got a nice little slate today and tomorrow as it's rivalry week. earlier today, it was number 6 Ole Miss beating Mississippi State in Starkville 38-19. That's a third straight Egg Bowl win for Ole Miss. The big question is, what is Lane Kiffin going to do? We still don't know. I don't even know if he knows. He might have been trolling when he said he's got some praying to do. He also trolled a reporter post-game in typical Lane Kiffin fashion. There's going to be an announcement sometime tomorrow. We should have a little bit more clarity on Lane Kiffin's future at some point on Saturday. Currently, right now in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Georgia Bulldogs are up by 10 points, 16-6 on Georgia Tech in clean old-fashioned hate. The Yellow Jackets are getting the ball back with under 6 minutes to play. They're down 2 scores. Of course, that's a non-conference game. If you're wondering about SEC championship game scenarios, Georgia needs either Texas A&M or Alabama to lose so they could play again in Atlanta next week. Texas A&M clinches their spot with a victory. They have to win, especially now that Ole Miss has won. So Texas A&M's only path to Atlanta is to win the game. And then, of course, the Iron Bowl. You see it on your screen now, a 6:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday night. If Alabama wins that game, they are in and will punch their ticket to Atlanta. Other games I'm watching tomorrow, of course, the game. I've got a rooting interest in that one. Ohio State, a 9.5-point favorite over Michigan. 11 a.m. kickoff on Fox. Michigan has not lost to the Buckeyes in 2,190 days. Michigan 4 straight wins over Ryan Day, who is once again standing on third base. You heard a few weeks ago that Pat Narduzzi called Pitt's game against Notre Dame anything but a must-win. They lost it, but they won their next one. Now they're playing a surefire must-win as the winner, I believe, goes to the ACC championship game. It's number 12 Miami versus number 22 Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. It's going to be chilly. 11 a.m. Central Time on ABC. The Hurricanes 6.5-point favorites on Saturday morning. Number 14 Vanderbilt goes to Rocky Top to face number 19 Tennessee at 2:30 p.m. kickoff on ESPN. The Vols a 2.5-point favorite. We'll see if Diego Pavia can do anything to improve his Heisman Trophy candidacy at Neyland Stadium tomorrow. And then, of course, all eyes will be on the Iron Bowl as it relates to the Southeastern Conference Championship game. The Tide looking to win at Jordan-Hare to punch their ticket to Atlanta. Elsewhere, as it relates to Texas A&M, it is a splattering, or it was a splattering in Tampa Bay. Texas A&M currently leads Florida State 61-40, 12:25 remaining in that one. Florida State currently on a 9-0 run over the last 3 minutes and 30 seconds. A&M's led by as many as 28 points in that one. Would be a huge victory for Bucky McMillan and company. It would be at worst a quadrant 2 road or neutral site game for the Ags as they're looking for their first Power 5 Power Conference victory of the Bucky McMillan era. We had Jamie Morrison in studio a little bit earlier. Texas A&M volleyball will learn its postseason fate on Sunday. The selection show is set for Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. A&M kind of projects it a low 2 seed or a high 3 seed. We'll see how it falls. Either way, expect the Aggies to play at least the first 2 rounds at Reed Arena beginning next weekend. It's time to make some predictions on our way out here on this TexAgs Tailgate show brought to you by our friends at Duck Camp. On the year, 27-22, Nick. Not too shabby. Went 2-3 last week against Samford. Here's my 5 prediction for this one. All right, number 1, I've got Arch Manning throwing an interception tonight. Number 2, I've got Cassius Howe with more sacks than Colin Simmons. I'm not going to give you a total. I've just got number 9 getting more than their guy. 3, Reuben Owens. I've got him scoring twice. You can use him as a running back. You can use him as a receiver out of the backfield. Reuben Owens, 4 so crazy, going to find pay dirt a couple of times. Number 4, I've got the Aggies passing for over 200 and rushing for over 150 in this one. And my 5th and final predictions, we book our trips to Atlanta tonight. Ags will wrap up a 12-0 regular season. It would be the first time since 1992 if they can pull off a victory in Austin tonight. Our thanks to Nick Savage, our director and producer on this edition of the TexAgs Tailgate Show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Duck Camp, for sponsoring this as well. Thank you guys for tuning in wherever you may be. and let's get ready to beat the hell out of the Texas Longhorns. Kickoff set for 6:30 p.m. on ABC. We'll see you next time right here on the TexAgs Tailgate Show.